Welcome to the Genius Talk podcast. I'm your host Atul Raj from the bestemailmarketer.com, and today we have Angela Heise with us. Angela, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Atul. It's lovely to be seen.
Yep. Okay, so for our listeners who don't know you, can you tell them who you are and what do you do?
Okay, so my name is Angela Heise, as you said. I'm originally from Germany. I live in Australia. And for the last 30 years, I've been a coach in human skills and leadership, cultural intelligence. All of those skills we're supposed to learn, but nobody really teaches us.
Okay, so you have developed program around emotional productivity. So how do you define emotional productivity and why it is so crucial for today's leader?
Well, a lot of people think that we are, we're at the mercy of emotions and that we just have to go with it. And I think that when we have a certain skill set, we can manage emotions quite effectively. And that doesn't mean that we suppress them. It doesn't mean that we push them down. It doesn't mean that we live them. It's like, oh, now I've got permission to live my emotions. Now I can erupt. I can, do all of these things, but it's the ability to actually feel the emotion, to be able to talk about what matters to me, because emotional productivity is also about having my needs met, and every emotion has a need attached to it. So when our emotions are unpleasant, our needs are not being met. We also, when we have emotional productivity, we can set boundaries. Do you know how many people don't set boundaries? It's scary. It's really scary. So those are the things, difficult conversations, the ability to listen, all of those skills we just never learn other than through doing. Like we don't go to school and do mathematics and, oh yes, a class in emotional productivity. Let's learn some human skills. We don't do that.
Yeah. So, what was the turning point or experience in your life that led you to focus on emotional intelligence and leadership coaching?
Oh, okay, I'll start a little bit early, right?
Yep.
So I grew up in a family where we just didn't express emotions. It was just one of those places where it just doesn't feel great growing up there. But then when I started working, I decided to, like I had read, as you can tell, I love reading. I had read a lot of books about, what it takes to be a functional human being in my teens. And then in my 20s, I started working on myself. So I did therapy, I did lots of courses and all of that. And then in my 30s, I decided that I was going to start working with people, because a lot of people I had worked in one area with said, can you help me with other areas as well? And so I became a life coach when there was no life coaching. And it was just one of those things where I just went, do I really want to do this? And then I went, but I've been training for this all my life, so it just happened.
So, from your experience, like, what is the biggest misconceptions people have about emotional intelligence in workspace?
They think that when you have emotional intelligence, you cry, you laugh, you get really emotional, you have group hugs, those that used to be the way we looked at emotional intelligence. But the biggest misconception is that you think that when you have emotional intelligence, you lose your task effectiveness. So as a leader, you don't have the respect because you are now in touch with your emotions. So that means you're soft. In fact, when you have emotional intelligence, it makes you even more effective. You become a leader people can find guidance in, but not the kind of guidance that says you will do this, but it's the kind that develops people so they become more productive, so they become more competent at what they're doing. And that's a really important skill set.
Can you give an example, like, how this works in real life?
Let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, I had a client who came to me and said, one of my team members is now leaving every day at 4:00. She just closes down and is just leaving. And I said, so have you talked to her about it? And he said, yes. And I told her that clearly she wasn't taking her job very seriously because she was leaving so early. And I said, and what was the result? And he said, well, it turns out that her started crying, and it turned out that her father was in hospital very seriously ill. But she didn't want to ask him for permission because he was so task-oriented that she thought he was going to say no, and she didn't want to risk that. So then we had to talk about, the ability to have empathy and to recognize that people have other needs outside of work. And so he started talking to her and worked out what worked better.
You know what? Most of the people work because of their some kind of need. So I think we have to understand our employees, like all the people
Yes.
we are working around first.
Yes. But you don't have to take care of them. It's like just because you understand them doesn't mean that you now have to become like a parent to them, which is what a lot of people think. When you support people, you have to now do it for them. when you're working from that emotional productivity place and space, what you do is you support people in doing it for themselves. So you will not, for example, you will not do something for someone. You will show them how it's done, and then you will teach them so they can do it themselves. So it's the old adage of don't give them a fish, teach them how to fish.
Okay, okay,
And
that makes sense.
yeah, and so that's really important.
Okay, can you share a success story from someone who went through your emotional productivity transformation program and what changed for them?
Oh God, I've got a lot of those.
Tell me your favorite one.
Okay, I'll give you one where I was working with somebody who was very reluctant to grow up, let's put it that way. So he was very successful at work, but he hadn't really appreciated what it takes to have relationships. So he was good at ordering and telling people what to do, but he wasn't really building rapport. And so he was, his idea of social life was to go out and drink and maybe do some exercise together. But he didn't really have any friends, and he'd never really been in a relationship. And he wasn't really effective as a leader either, because again, he wasn't building relationships. So we worked on building relationships and increasing effectiveness and building rapport and trust and all of that. And so by the time we were finished working, he was in his first relationship, intimate relationship with a
Uh,
partner.
uh-huh.
And his whole team structure had changed. And he actually had people who were enjoying working with him rather than wanting to leave the team.
Okay.
I also had somebody who would come home every night and vent to her partner. Would just download all of the stuff that had happened during the day to her. And so we talked about how she got really frustrated, and then she would just bottle it up and push it down, and then her husband would get all of it in the evening.
Uh-huh.
And so at work, everybody noticed how stressed she was, but how uptight she was. And at the same time, she said, "I think my marriage is suffering." So I taught her how to process her emotions in a really safe way. So it didn't come across as somebody who was venting or raging
Uh-huh.
or downloading or just pushing it down, and just, what the expression fine means, right?
Uh-huh.
Feelings inside not expressed. It's the I'm fine. Just don't ask me, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, so we worked on that, and so she would learn how to let go of her emotional build up, and then she would come home, and she realized that she wasn't downloading on her husband anymore. When she came home, she said basically, "Honey, I'm home," and she noticed how he went like this. His shoulders came up. And she asked him, she said, "Well, I'm bracing myself for half an hour of complaining about what had gone wrong and what was terrible on the day." And she said it's the work that we did basically saved her marriage.
That's great. Okay, so art of listening and attention management plays a huge role in this. So, what action, what actionable habits or practice can our listeners implement right away to improve their listening skill?
Stop picking up your phone. Put your phone away. We're not made for multitasking. I mean, you can practice that. I mean, if you just go write down, if you want to do this, just write A, B, C, write A to Z, and time yourself how long it will take. And then write 1 to 26 and time yourself doing that. And now write 1A, 2B, 3C and time yourself doing that. And you will find that it takes you much, much longer to do that than when you just do one task at a time. So when you're listening and you're staring at your phone or at your computer or anything like that, and you split your attention and you do two things at the same time, your listening will suffer. You will drop out information because you can't listen and do things at the same time. So if you just wanted to do that, that would be wonderful. And then be present with the person that you're talking to, make eye contact. I know in some cultures that's not appropriate, but occasionally look at them. Eyes are the windows of the soul. Connect with them with your heart, not just with your head. So they are very simple tools, and we're forgetting how to use them because everybody sits around the table and is just on the phone or watches TV or whatever it is. We're just splitting our attention in so many different ways that we're not hearing each other anymore.
Yeah. Okay, so you read a lot of books. Okay, so which one is your
Yeah.
favorite?
God. True, that depends on, oh God, I mean, what kind of book, how old I was when I read it, what impact it has made. I mean, let me put it this way.
Okay. Okay.
The book I'm reading at the moment that I find really, really interesting is by Amy Apigian, and it's called The Biology of Trauma. And it's been really, really interesting for me to read that and learn how stress can flip into trauma so quickly, and how many people are walking around completely traumatized without knowing it, and how we are getting worse and worse, which is why we have such an epidemic of mental illness.
Okay, what are your thoughts about this? From what I know, stress comes from things we have control over, but we are not taking control of. So, what's your thought on this?
Okay, well, we're never really in control.
Okay,
Like, control is an illusion.
okay,
What we can do is we can do the things that we can control directly, and those are the things that I actively do. But there are a lot of people who confuse being able to manage their own lives with what they think they can control. Like, I'm not talking about, but the weather, other people. There are so many elements that people think they need to be in control of. It really upsets them when they are not, when adverse circumstances go against them, right? So let go of that idea that you're in control, prepare for the unexpected, and just focus on being in the present and do
uh-huh.
the best you can do right now. Yes, prepare, but not from a place of losing your joy of living. I mean, as a German, I can tell you it's really easy to prepare for the future. There are so many things that Germans do really well, building great cars, right? Because Germans always think about what else could go wrong and what else could go wrong. So they build cars that last forever, right? But it's also I went to this picnic and oh God, there was this cloud on the horizon and I was wondering when the rain would start. And they forget that the food is wonderful, that the people are great, that they're having lots of fun because they're constantly worrying about the cloud. So again, when you let go of that thing of what are you in control of and what's happening right now, your life gets much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so for our listeners who want to connect with you, where can they go?
Well, they can connect with me through my website, and that's
Hmm.
angelaheise.com, like my
Okay,
name with the .com.
awesome. Okay, Angela, thank you so much for spending some time with us, and it was really fun chatting with you.
Thank you, Atul.